So colleagues, thank you very much and welcome to the one-stop postgraduate eFundi framework that will be launching yesterday and today. It was designed by academics and support staff from the NWU. It started out with me needing a postgrad site for my students and Benita and her team who received a lot of requests for postgraduate sites. So we joined forces and as a result, the one-stop postgrad eFundi framework was developed. A note up front, this is a framework. It can be used in various ways. It's in no ways meant to be forced on you, and it's very flexible. So soon you will be able to see the new landing page for the NWU postgrad students that will guide students before they get to the registration at the NWU on what do they need, are they right for their studies, and much more information like that. Now this information is similar to the first section of information on the eFundi site, which I will share with you in a moment. Then once the students are registered, they can return to this site where they will be guided on how to actually access the eFundi site. So what is this site all about? It's about connecting the NWU Postgrad landing page with the eFundi site and all support services that's available to students at the Northwest University. It follows the SALA steps to guide students and support supervisors. It's a framework which can be used as it is. It has pre-populated assignments that can be used to capture student documentation, including things like the ethics certificate, registration documentation, or even proposals as the student go on in their journey. It can be a joinable site where you can join this site that you will see now, or it can be individualized per faculty, school, research entity, or even linked to a current module that you already have. The links won't break because they are stored in another site. So if you duplicate the site, the link should still be working. And the idea is that you have access to all services, but from one platform. Everything that you see here is already available on the NWU library site, but it is grouped here and structured in the steps of the SALA process, just to make the flow a little bit more logical and easy to guide. So these are the 8 steps, and then there's a quick links section, which we will go to as well. So when you arrive at the home page or the overview page, then Harty will be the character that will welcome you. Harty is the study buddy that we created for the postgrad students. And as you know, postgrad studies can be very lonely. So it will help the student with a variety of things, guide the student, and also check in every now and again for support. If we then go to the different steps, step 1 has to do with inquiries, application, and admission. And like mentioned, the first 2 buttons on this page is the same than on the NWU Postgrad landing page. So it's a repetition. Then we have training before the students start, including IT training and finalizing your workspace. Within this section, there's pre-set up assignments, such as how to set up your eFundi Dropbox with different folders that you may need. Every now and again, there's a checklist area where you can see if you've done everything that you were supposed to do up to this point. And then at any point, the student can have access to the training bank within the quick links section. In page 2 or step 2 is the registration and re-registration. Now, this is also on the Postgrad landing page, but since students need to re-register every year, we've also included it here in the eFundi site. Step 3 is the title registration according to the SALA process, but we've included the proposal itself, since if you don't have a proposal, you can't have your title registration. So this section is then developed and designed into 3 different areas: training in the research design, proposal development, and then the title registration processes and administration. This is followed by the actual research after the student already had received their ethical clearance to continue with their study. So that is the study guidance section. And it also has 3 different sections, with one of them going out to another eFundi site, which is the postgraduate research support site. Now, the reason why we have this outside the one-stop master site is because this site has more to do with other functionalities of eFundi, such as online bookings and communicating directly via email with the academic advisors on the 3 different campuses. But it's very much part of the one-stop functionality. Step 5 then has to do with notice of submission. So the student here is referred to the DIY system on the NWU site to register their ORCID ID at the library, but also to fill in the forms for notice of submission. Step 6 has to do with the examination process, and it explains how the process takes place at the Northwest University, and also again direct the student to the Solemn Declaration DIY system. What's important about the links on this site is that they are all linked to the actual primary website where it is situated on the NWU website. So if the documentation is changed on the NWU website, you don't need to change it on the site. It will happen automatically. Thereafter, the final marks and result letter step will follow. And this is where it's just explained what the process is, how the student prepare their final copies and so forth. And that they will now then be handed over to the graduation ceremony office. Which step 8 is then the graduation office, and they will then receive email communication from this office. If we go to the quick link step or button, you will see that there are 3 different sections. The one is the postgraduate services, another one the training bank, and another one academic resources. And we will jump into each of them in a moment when I go to the live site. Like mentioned earlier, we've created preset assignments which can or don't have to be used, but for the purposes of keeping records and backups for the students, such as your 6 monthly reports. How do you set up your backup with Dropbox in eFundi? Access to the TREE online training, a 1-page study summary which you can upload, the supervision agreement, and annual proof of registration. Especially the last 2, we usually don't know where to store those. They lie on a computer of one of the supervisors, and it's difficult to get hold of these if we do an audit or need an audit trail. So hopefully this assignment section will then also help us to have a good place where we can store the records for the moment. Then, how can you join this site? So this site can be joined either as a joinable site. So if the student or the staff member open the eFundi homepage, then they will have a link which they can click for a joinable site, and then they can join the site as it is. I've set up a sample as well if you want to use groups. So for each of the faculties, we can do a joinable set. And then for each of the units within the faculties, there can be an additional area that they can join. Alternatively, you can duplicate the site so that we can individualize it for each faculty, where we have differences and processes, for example, within ethics or in the scientific review processes. So that can be individualized, or even the library area. Or you can decide to use it for your unit, your research unit, and then you can have joinable sets maybe in your research unit for different programs that you may run. Or if you as a supervisor or a lecturer want to use this site can be linked and integrated with your individual module site. So there's various ways that it can be used, and we'll explain that process in a moment. So now I would just like to share with you another section on the live website. If you'll just give me a moment for that. Thank you. Benita, to confirm that the screen is showing?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Okay, so if you go to your website, your eFundi site, you go to Research One Stop Master. It's the master site at the moment. So you will land on the welcome page. Like I said, Harty will be the one greeting and welcoming you. And it just gives a short outline of how the site is structured. Then we go to the application section. Like mentioned in the presentation, we have this area that is readiness for postgrad studies. And really the information that's on there is also the information that you will find then on the NWU website on the postgrad landings page. Also included here is to assess if you are fluent in your English language, how the postgrad qualifications is usually structured. And then as we go along, everywhere in the site, you will find there's a checklist area. So the student can check here and see if they are happy with everything that's been stated. So they still have the chance to opt out if they want to. Then, just to go to the research, pre-research IT setup, here you will be introduced to Techie. So Techie is the partner of Hearty, and the aim of Techie is really to support students in how to set up all their technological things before they start their studies. We found that a lot of energy of supervisors go into technical editing and helping students to really work with their computers in the way you need it for research. And we can save a lot of time if we can automate this. So for example, if you want to go to IT support, there is a button for IT support or a page for IT support on the NWU site. But here we just provide them to a direct link so you can, in a flowing manner, you can work through all the material. A technology questionnaire for the students to see if they can really work a computer the way they think they can. Setting up their hardware, computer specifications, and then they can once again check, do I have everything that I need for my postgrad studies? Then we go to software. So once a student is registered at the NWU, they can make use of all the software that's available to them. Setting up their Microsoft account and Gmail addresses, Wi-Fi, AnyDesk so that they have contact with the IT department, antivirus, passports, etc. Then they can also make sure that they can really use all the software that they need. So general software will then jump to the quick links, and we'll go back to that in a moment. So there you can see there's a nice section on how to actually set up your Word document. So you as a supervisor don't need to explain that to the student all the time. And then finally, at the end of this section, again, a checklist just to see, can I do all these things? So Techie or Hearty will then check in, say it was a great job. And now that we need to make sure that we know where the IT department is and what they can help the student with. Then on finalizing the workspace, so they will have a link first from the landing page on the NWU site to how to access eFundi. But all the other functionalities of eFundi is then on this site, and there's a nice eFundi playlist that explain each of these activities or functionalities. Then there's a section on project management for the researchers. We just put in some interesting, useful information. This can be upgraded and changed as the need may arise. And then, of course, backups is very important. So we provide the student with information about Google Drive that's available for students. They usually don't know about this service. So how to set up your Google Drive and how to use that, but then also how to use eFundi in the Dropbox, the eFundi Dropbox section. So it's in an assignment format. So it tells the student to open the Dropbox, create the folders so you can decide which different folders, and then the tutorial is available for the students as well. And then every time there will be quick links so that the student can access training and services whenever they want to, and if they can't remember where it is in the site. Then we go to registration. I've explained that to you, taking them to the Postgrad page, an activity to upload their proof of registration, the faculty representatives, what's the information about that, and then information about pausing or interrupting studies at any point. Then we go to title and registration. Like I've mentioned, there's 3 sections in there. So the first section then will link to the training research design. And we have in here the information about the short learning program and research design as developed by the Research Obtentia unit. So there's information about what this program is about, the 10 study units that they include, and then some feedback from students who actually did this course. We found that it was very helpful for our students this year going online. Then how do you put your proposal together? So all the different sections that you need in a proposal, and this is in no ways intended to be a textbook, so it's really just high-level information. What is templates? How do you get the Post-Grad templates for the NWU? And if you have specific templates for your research unit, these can be added here. And then a training video on the Post-Grad templates that's been made available by the IT department for us. So the student can go back to this at any point and you as supervisor don't need to do the explanation. Then just sort information about a proposal abstract. What is it? How long should it be? Literature review and the different services that's available under there. The writing center. So this information will be the same anywhere on the site where you talk about the writing center. Grammarly, if they use that for grammar checking. Endnote, starting with an overview, how to use and download Endnote, quick training, but then also followed by a longer in-depth training for using Endnote. On methodology, literature overviews, just as a sample, we included the different kinds of literature overviews, starting with a scoping review, what it is, and using the JBI videos in here, which seems to be very explanatory. Then a narrative review, what is it, how do you use it? Literature reviews as a method, and we've included an article written by our own staff members at the NWU, and then the systematic review, again linking to nice YouTube videos here. And then the next section is on the research gap problem, aim and objectives. So this is really just a sample that can be used if you want to, a one-pager if you want to summarize your study, helping the students to conceptualize and structure what they want to do and something to refer back to. Then the methodology section, because there's so many different kinds of methodology, it goes to the quick links where I'll show you in a moment what we have in there. Rigor, that's just the definition of rigor. Ethics, again, going to the ethics policy and guidelines of the NWU website, the different regs that we have on the Northwest University, and then ethics training, which is currently the online tree ethics training. So the idea in this section is also that then the ethics committees can then, if they don't have a site per se where the students can be linked to, then they can develop a subpage here with their processes and information for the students per faculty. Addendums, general addendums that we use, such as code of conduct and confidentiality agreements. And then again, a checklist for proposal completeness. So the student can then check before they even submit to the supervisor, have I done all of these things? Did I use the correct cover page? Is my student name and my ORCID number on? Is there a list of figures included? Is there page numbers in my document, etc.? So if we look at the administrative processes, these are also more individualized per faculty. So a little bit on scientific review committees and maybe how a scientific review report may look. It's a sample. And then ethics and ethics approval. So this is the information about the ethics approval, not the training. And then the title registration process and title amendment. So those documents are not for the student, they're for the supervisor. So that therefore there's no documents uploaded in that section. If you look at the guidance, this is now when the student have received ethical clearance and they can continue with their research. So there's two areas, administration and report writing, but also very important, the post-grad research support, which I've explained to you a while ago. So at any point, the student can link to this area because they may want to attend an article writing boot camp, and then they can then book here through the Postgrad Research Support Hub. If you look at the admin training and documents in the research process, mostly the student is then referred to the DIY services. A lot of the information is there, and then assignments uploaded for the 6 monthly reports, which can then also be stored on this site. Report writing, some information about the academic overview, And in this section, we've included a short description of the A rules, but always referring the student back to the Manual of Higher Degrees. And then researcher code of conduct, a supervisor contract, what it is, where you find it, and then academic integrity, links to the YouTube seminars. Then in the report writing, this is very similar than with the proposal development. What is the abstract then for your research report? How does that differ from your proposal? How do we usually compile reports at the NWU, either in the traditional format or in the article format? Literature review, I've already shown you. And then article writing, so high-level guidelines on how to decide on an article in a journal and so forth, with some information on deciding on authorship, because this is usually a burning point when we get to articles. And then again, if they need more in-depth training on that and support, they can contact the Post-Grad Research Support Hub. Concluding chapter, what you should include there. And then references, which then again link to your Endnote section in the training area. And addendums, if there's any addendums that's required. Then the student is already done with their research, so now they go to notice of submission that I've explained to you, the exam process, and the documents that's relevant there, final marks and the results letter, and then the student is guided to the graduation office. Now, usually after the student is ready for examination, we tend to lose contact with them, and they don't submit their work necessarily on a place where it's backup and so on. So these last steps is really to keep that contact with the student, that they don't just get lost. I'm just going to jump to the resource section. You'll see it's very few resources, not a lot. The reason for that is, like I've mentioned earlier, the resources is placed in another site so that the links won't break. But if you individualize for your section, you can actually then add these resources in here, but it makes duplication easier so that you can also use the site year after year. If you look at the quick links, there's 3 areas. The one is postgraduate services. So things like the Writing Center, the library, postgrad research, student support. And we have mentioned all of these. On the library, then there's the library services, what's about that. And then there's another section on the training, which we'll get to in a moment. If you look at the training bank, that's divided, and this section is open for development and expansion. So the general software I've showed you, academic writing was already in there, project management. The library, they set up very nice trainings for us, and they've done that in connection and relation to the Referella project. So an overview of the libraries, an introduction, setting up your ORCID, and a nice video on that. Search engines, and then tutorials there. Then they don't need to repeat these tutorials for each and every group. However, they are still willing to do so. Referella and how to use the referencing system. Endnote and all the Endnote training, which you've already seen. Turnitin also, information about that, and you can also then use this site to create an assignment for your Turnitin reports. On the methodology section, different methodologies, and then different sections on there on the different methodologies that we have. In this section, we would really like to invite all the researchers at the NWU who feel that they are working in a group or they have a specific interest in some of the methodologies to please contribute in this area, because we would like to expand it. So, for example, for mixed methods, we will provide an overview, and then we would like to provide a one-pager on what this method is about. And then the important part is we would like to develop a 3-hourly online training for each of these methods. That can be available to all students via this one-stop site. So if you are interested in any specific area, please let us know so that we can include you in this section. Ethics we already talked about, some additional lectures that's been uploaded there, and then some software training that researchers need when they are doing their research. So just to show you, I did show it in the presentation as well. But if we go, if you want to use the group section, So you can have joinable groups or other groups where you can import the students in. So I just use the Faculty of Health Sciences as an example. And you can then include this. If you have students from different groups, I'm going to show you this site, for example. What I have here is I have one site, but I have my PhD dissertation student, thesis students, and my master's thesis students, but there's also a methodology. So they will be registered for a module, even if it's not a lectured module. So that will be the module that you can actually then link to the site to get your students to be added to the site automatically. And you can keep the sites as groups. And within the different groups, you can then send a message or an announcement to a specific group of a specific year, making it easier for you to communicate with your students, but have all the information in one place. So the next question would then be, where to from here? And for this, again, I would like to thank the co-contributors and actually the designers, Benita and Zarista, who did a great job. But you can follow this link, which we will also put in the chat, and request assistance to actually use this site in your site. And then Benita and her team will set up a meeting with you, deciding how you would like to use the site. So everything is included because it's easier to delete some things that you're not going to use. If you want to contribute in any part of the site with the in-depth online trainings, you can contact myself, Velma Libbe. If you want to first view the site and see if it's going to work for you, Zarista will be able to add you as a student, but if you're on the call, you've also been added already. And if you have any structural design questions, you can contact Benita Jansen, who's also on the call and would be able to manage that for you. Thank you very much. I hope that there's some information that's useful for you.